Well, hello, everybody. It is time for another Office Hours of the Arbitrage. This is a very special episode because it's a long time coming. I think like 9 months we've been talking about an expanded feature set. Guess what? It's here. It's an amazing day. Past 24 hours has been rather extreme in terms of the yin yang that Sly Fox initiated with his decision. It was quite good, though. So that was a fun thing to see in Rocket Chat. A lot of good activity going on. A lot of people already look through the data set, but I know there's a lot of questions. So I asked Michael Phillips and asked Michael Oliver to join me today, along with some of the other team members, to help us figure out what in the world are we looking at. So seeing that all our guests are here, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and look at the Slido. We'll start there. And then depending on our time, we'll do a demonstration of the analysis and tips notebook. So you guys ready? Let's do this thing. First question, 8 upvotes from Yifan. Is there a plan to withdraw the support for the old data format?
Yeah, there's no like immediate plan. It probably will be phased out over quite a long time, like maybe say 6 months from now or something. We'll start sending out emails and saying, hey, it looks like you're submitting to the old endpoint or submitting some old predictions. So you need to start switching over, but it'll be a really gradual phase out, and everybody will be like very aware of it when it does happen. But it's like months away.
Okay, that's good to know, and pretty consistent with former data releases too. So that's good to hear. Rigrog has the next question, 4 upvotes on that one. Since legacy modelers and new data modelers are still competing in the same tournament, they both have to look at the same set of live rows, right? And the answer is yes. So I just presume y'all are feeding in the live era into whatever data pipelines you have, so it spits out the same result for both files.
Yeah, that's right. The live IDs are identical. So
right.
Yeah.
So we're all predicting the same thing. We're just using potentially different inputs, but we'll be scored on the same set. So good question, Rigrog. Anonymous with the next one. How do we reduce the data set file size? Currently it's in float 32 in the Parquet file, but there are ways to reduce it lower. So we talked a little bit about that in data science, and the team has already indicated support for releasing a Parquet file that has float 16 columns instead of float 32. That's a work in progress. Would you like to say when we might expect that?
I'm hoping, I don't want to commit, but soon. I'm hoping like the next couple of days. I'm working on it right now. I've just tested it. I just have to talk with Ark on he's like the submissions king, right? So I'll communicate with him a bit, but I don't think we're going to do float 16. Some Parquet engines have issues with half floats.
Okay.
But what I'm going to put out is basically a file that has ints for all the features. And you can just basically read it, just hit like a different URL in Numerai API. And you can just download a file that'll be way smaller because it's ints for features.
Gotcha. I also shared a snippet in the data science channel in Rocket Chat that gives you the ability to load in the CSV version of the file directly in the data type format you want. I'll try to include that snippet in a forum post so that others can use it as well, but do look for that. JRAI with the next question. Any creative ideas or info on the new targets? I'll stop there and let you answer that.
I think MDO is going to have more to say. Michael Oliver will have more to say when he gets on about this, especially in the analysis and tips. I know he's actually adding some more about this right now, like a last second add in to talk about. So yeah, I don't have anything more to add than he will, or than the analysis and tips will have. The rest of the question.
Michael Oliver's trying to speak, I think, but I can't hear him.
Oh, cool.
Let's see. He's working on it, folks. So while he's working on it, I'm going to read the rest of the question. So I hear something. Crank that volume, my friend. Crank it up. He's close. We know we have audio. We just can't hear him very well. He's getting there. Yeah, so the question gets to kind of the design process, because Jerry, I would like to know if you tested shorter time frames than 20, and how did you ultimately decide on the 60-day? Uh-oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. I hear you great.
Sorry, the automatically adjust microphone volume was fucking it up.
No worries.
Yeah, I'll talk more about some of the target construction things a little bit. But yeah, I mean, one idea I won't talk about that is a potential idea is just making models that do well on multiple targets. So like having multiple outputs and then trying to make a model that can generate outputs from multiple targets, and then having all of them, all the ones you want in your loss function. Something like that is a good idea. But yeah, there's tons of other things you guys can try. I want to leave it pretty open-ended.
Right. So, but you tested shorter than 20 days, but didn't include it?
We didn't test that much shorter than 20 days. I mean, the signals, signals used to be shorter than 20 days, and we kind of moved to 20 days. And so, yeah. So
yeah, a lot of noise on that. The 60-day would represent a quarter, correct? So
yeah, so that's actually pretty close to our average holding time.
Yeah.
And so it made sense to have that as a time length. So yeah,
no, that makes sense. If you look at it, it's basically 1 trading month or 3 trading months, which represents, about a quarter. So it makes sense empirically, because most papers do look at either half-year rebalance, annual rebalance, or quarterly. Rarely, I haven't seen a paper that does monthly. So in that sense, it does make sense to me to do a 60-day. And then, like you said, to look at different models trained on various lengths, that is an interesting idea too. Next question, Rigrog. If I download the legacy dataset, it will be equivalent to about 310 column subset of the 1050 columns. So is that accurate? Is there
It's not 1-to-1. Like these targets are different. You can get, I mean, since we give out the live data for both sets, I'm sure you can match up the closest ones. I'm sure there's 310 that are like very close to the other ones. We don't like have a list provided for that or anything, but yeah, it's very close to like the new data is very close to a superset of the original 310.
Yeah, that makes sense. But there isn't a 1-to-1 mapping. I know that there will be a question eventually about the ability to do so or not. I'm sure we'll get there. Yeah, in fact, this is the next question. Yufan has it. Is it possible to generate a 310 feature version from the new validation set to allow local benchmarking of old models against new ones?
Yeah, I don't think, I mean, we're not planning on providing that map, but I'm sure if you just look at the most recent live error, like I said, you'll be able to match something up pretty closely.
Okay, so that's one methodology. May not be exact, but it's going to be a pretty close approximation. So, okay.
But yeah, you won't be able to just use a model trained on the old data with it, even if you figure out the mapping. It won't work exactly the same.
Okay, so there's some hazards there.
Just to ultra clarify that, 310 columns in the new data are not the exact same 310 columns that already exist. You haven't just expanded by or added only 700 or whatever. These are all new columns.
That's true. Yeah, they're all new, although there are some very close analogs.
Right. Okay.
So Anonymous, I really like this question because I think we can tend to get lost in the weeds sometimes. Can you explain time series split groups in English? In other words, just use plain language, not domain specific language, and the reason for why it is important.
Sure. So it's important for the same reason the group k-fold is important. It's just the time series version of that one. So its training period gets longer and longer at each fold, but it uses the error boundaries to break things up rather than just arbitrarily using a certain number of samples. So it's just basically a version of the time series cross validation that respects error boundaries. And time series in general is kind of nice because you're always using historical data to predict the future rather than using future data to predict the past, which tends to be easier. but there's advantages for both. I always recommend doing both.
Yeah, basically the errors overlap. 1 through 4 represent basically the same month, is how I think about it. So if you have overlapping weeks from the same month, if you were to randomly sample, there's a chance that in one of your folds you have the entire month, and in another fold you have parts of a month, in which case you've oversampled 1 month at the expense of its ability to generalize out of sample. And so doing this time series split represents those boundaries such that there's a gap between 1 and 4 that it will not be encompassed in the training data. So then you avoid a lot of these autocorrelation problems too.
So that's all. Yeah, that's part of it. So the code I provided in the notebook, it doesn't do any of the purging you would need to do to make sure that there's no overlap. I subsampled at every 4th era, so everything is non-overlapping before that. If you want to just keep the weekly data and do any kind of cross-validation, you need to make sure you take care of the purging of overlaps between folds.
I'm a strong advocate of making sure that you are not oversampling errors that are too close together in whatever stratification you are using. And that just comes from my domain experience in finance. So that's why I push that so strongly. So I hope we answered your question, Anonymous, because I'm sure that there's a lot of people with questions on it. A lot of this, of course, comes from Marcos Lopez de Prado's book, Advances in Financial Machine Learning. I do recommend everybody check that out. GRAI with the next one. Dimensionality reduction, like PCA, didn't work too well on the old data set. Do you think it will be any better with a wider feature set?
I haven't tried, but I wouldn't necessarily expect it to be any better.
Okay, there you go. But try, definitely try. I think that's the key there. Let's see, Rigrog, can I somehow get the old 310 columns, but a lot more rows, especially validation rows? Well, from our previous question, that's a no. We can't do a mappings in that way, so we're unable to. Honeycomb, could you please include the metadata information, NaN features, etc., in the compute webhook call? This will help users determine whether to rerun.
This comes from a conversation that we had in Rocket Chat yesterday. And yeah, there's some questions about NaNs in the data, because you notice in the example script, and I guess in my forum post as well, I talk a bit about preparing for NaNs. But yeah, that's really very far away, and we don't expect any NaNs like in the next year or something. I mean, I just wanted to get that in the code so that in a year, if we do have to put in NaNs, no one's pipelines break. That's kind of the thinking there. This question is about, so I suggested that maybe in the future I'll put out some metadata that says these features are NaN this week, and maybe expect them by this time, or hey, these have just been updated, these features you might want to resubmit if you want to use these features that just showed up 12 hours late or whatever it is. So yeah, we'll talk with you guys and see what the best way to automate your pipelines whenever we have to deal with this issue. But so far away, not really thinking about it too much yet.
No, but it makes sense. How many times in the past have we been hung up because we're waiting on a single feature call? It seems like this has happened before, right? So I'm just reading between the lines. This makes perfect sense. Then we're not, waiting for who knows how long on potentially a single column. I think this is a great, but to figure out what the best way to manage that change too. But I like it. I think it's very smart. So let's see. You found another good question. Is there a straightforward way to perform? We keep in the same one. Apparently, this is important, and I do think it's important. So I want to stress to the team the reason there's so many questions. People would love to see this feature, but I digress. Is there a straightforward way to perform comparison of old models versus new models using the new diagnostics tool?
There's really not. I mean,
no.
The validation data is there over different times. So the old validation diagnostics look way better because that period's much easier than the new one. But I don't know if you read my forum post at all, you'll see like if you just try to model on both, the new data is just typically way better.
Excuse me, sir. Reading the manual is highly frowned upon in data science communities, sir. We're supposed to spend 5 hours debugging when we could when we could do it all in 5 minutes by reading the manual. Duh. So I resent that.
No, I do get the point though. Like you do
Yeah.
want to compare, and just saying like, oh, I promise it's probably better is not satisfying at all. I do get that. But I hope somebody maybe puts out like their best map of the 310 features so that people can like try to recreate their models or something. That's yeah.
Pretty interesting. I have no idea. Although I suppose since we do have live results, if we have stored models, if we could get close to, I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud. Probably not.
Also, the new validation set largely or completely overlaps and it's longer than the old val2.
Okay.
So comparing your val2 performance to the new validation is a decent proxy as well.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay, a repeat of the first question. For how long will the weekly data be supplied in legacy format? So we're looking at several months, and they'll communicate change along the way. So that's a good thing, I would say, so that we can have some time to build models, because this is a big change. It's going to take some folks a lot of time to really iterate through and build their best stuff. So several months, I think, is about right. Maybe a little longer. Don't know. I think polling the community on what they might like would be good too. Let's see. Will compute nodes continue to work? Yes, about the same question. So we're going to have compute running for several months. If we need it to be longer, as long as we all communicate that to the team, hopefully they're amenable to that. But several months should be long enough so that we can update compute, build new models, and rock and roll there. QE, I think it's probably obvious, but the start end dates of each era is the same as the eras from the old data set. It's a question. So are the eras, the start and end, are they the same?
Of each era, no.
Right. So like 1
yeah.
through 574 is the same as 1 through 132. Is that correct?
It's not exactly. Like the validation is like, okay, so it used to be before there was like the training period, and then there's like a bit of validation, and then there's like the test period, and then some more validation, and then there's some more test, and it was like this whole like mess. But now it's just there's all the training periods continuous, all the test data is continuous, and then all the validation data is continuous. It's just in that order. So yeah, the answer is no. They're switched around a bit, and it'd be kind of hard to match them up, I think.
Okay.
But in general, the data covers the same time period. Yeah, just like era 1 starts at the same point as old era 1, if that's what they mean.
I think that's what the question is asking, but you know, it's hard to infer in text, so we do our best. And if we miss it, just ping us and we can fix it. But yeah, I think that's what they're talking about. So that sounds about right. How did you come up with all those feature names? Did people get to like put in 20 words of their choosing and then you just amalgamated it all together or something? I see
don't know,
Noah's laughing, Liam was laughing, Anson was laughing. There's a story here and I need to know what it is.
No, it's just I don't know. It's basically like a hash, but using like words instead of like symbols. So like say you make a password generator and you can put together random 50 different symbols. We put together basically 3 different words from a selection of 100,000 words. So that's all it is.
Yeah, I found the largest list of adjectives and nouns I could find on the internet. And so it's basically creates 2 adjectives and a noun, and it's a hash function that there's enough combinations that we're unlikely to have collisions.
Cool. I didn't know, maybe people got to choose some words. Some of them, I was looking at one of them, I was like, well, that's a really interesting word choice. It's like, I wonder how they even came up with that. So to the person that asked the question, it's good because I wanted to know if there's a story behind it too. So why the switch to light GBM?
Just memory. Yeah. I mean, I was actually trying to like run the example code locally like a couple of days ago, and I just like couldn't even get it to run. And it was like XGB was what was crashing it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like a panic. I was like, all right, we have to, MDO recommended lgbm could be a fix. So kind of just slid that in at the last minute. But the performance seemed like very, very similar, if not like better in some cases for lgbm. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like the sklearn interface, especially for xgboost, creates copies of your data, which is kind of dumb. And so you just like double or triple your memory usage. And with this data set, that becomes impractical.
Indeed. Okay. And just the comment on the last part of that question with the old data, XGBoost did better for this user. Well, Anonymous, I guess now we have a hypothesis test, right? You can take the example model, rebuild it in XGBoost and compare. And if you have an edge, you can stay silent about it as per the usual response of the community.
I found the same thing too previously, but I also think the XGBoost or Light GBM has improved and added some features. Like I don't know if it used to have like the call sample by tree argument and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, we all just have to try all the things. That's the bottom line here. Maybe even chunking in some capacity if you're having difficulty with XGBoost might be a solution. But, you know, I think it's going to be a flurry of activity the next several weeks. So it's going to be really important to check with the forum, stay active in Rocket Chat, and do check out Daily Scores and Chill to stay on top of things, because I'm sure we'll talk about it. There's just no way we won't be throwing around questions and comments all over the next several weeks. So Anonymous is asking, giving access to the test targets, is that off the table?
For now, yes.
Yeah, I mean, you all deserve the
I
ability
mean,
to back test. So I think it's only right that you have some unlabeled data to evaluate us on.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it would be unreasonable to ask for them to go without back testing ability, but you know, some people do want that. So
it is on our radar. We have had many conversations about this, and yeah, about the pros and cons.
Yeah, our plan is to give away the test targets
eventually. Okay. There's a link posted in the Slido, and the person's asking, will this still be the old data? It points to the csv.xz file. And I think from what I read in Rocket Chat that is true, unless you use Numerai API. If you try to hit the endpoint, it'll give you the old data sets. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right. All the old data is staying in place and it'll still be generated every week like it always has.
Okay, but Numerai API can distinguish between old and new by specifying current round.
That's right.
Right. Okay. So that's it. So if you have the static link in your pipeline, it'll pull the old data. If you use Numerai API, then you can get the new data to feed through your pipeline. So that's the way you can work through that. Anonymous, will you consider providing a smaller version of the new data set? For example, a simple PCA pre-processing carried out by the team. This may lower the barriers to entry.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like right away. Right away, like I said, we're gonna put out like a one with integer features that should hopefully make it a little bit easier to deal with. But at some point, yeah, I think we're gonna put out like some different feature groupings. Like this is a compressed set of features it's much less, but has most of the information. Or you can download the big one if you want everything. But it's not the immediate term. But we've thought about it and we'll put it out at some point.
Okay. And Rigrog has a comment. The README.md says there's 2 million rows in train, 540,000 rows in validation, 1.4 million rows in the tournament, so 3.94 million rows. But that's only 1.7 times as many rows as legacy, not 4 or 5. That's what it says.
The 4 or 5 got the training data. That there's so much. The test data was weekly before, and that's all the same. But I mean, what is most relevant for users is the amount of training data, and that is 4 or 5 times as big.
Right. Mikiasto, is it possible? Here we go again. Is it possible to reconstruct the 310 legacy features using the new data set? So that's like the 5th time that we've had this question. It's really important. So I'm going to say that we really want this. The answer was no, by the way.
Yeah.
Anonymous, what's the significance of TB scores? How to interpret them for model evaluation? I believe that's top bottom, correct? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can take this.
I was going to wax poetic, but I'll let you do it.
I don't know. It's kind of another way to. I don't know, Richard, do you have anything you want to say about this? Maybe you can answer it better than I can.
I was just looking at it. I didn't know we'd released it. So that's in diagnostics now?
It's in the utilities, correct?
Yeah, just like, it's in the example script. So I do print out your top bottom scores after you run a model in the example script.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I hope to get into diagnostics as well. I think it is a worthwhile thing to look at because if you think about when we're combining your models with the other models, the parts of your model that have the most impact on the meta model are your extreme predictions, right? Because they're the highest values. So when we add them to the meta model, your extreme predictions have the highest impact. In live trading, this is even more pronounced because the optimizer, we're never buying 5,000 stocks. It's like 2,500 long, 2,500 short. It's more like 300 long, 300 short. So the stuff in your extremes, as in your top 100 predictions and your bottom 100 predictions, tend to be the predictions that we want you to get right, quite a bit more than we want you to get the middle stuff right. So it's worth showing it because it's relevant for live trading. It's also, I think, indicative of a poor model. If your extremes are very dense with feature exposure, because by the way, it's possible to have a feature exposure that is neutral across the entire 5,000 stocks, but not at all neutral in the extremes. And that tends to be indicative of a poor model. So I want to put the top bottom 100 in the diagnostics as well. And I believe in the long run, if we can create true contribution, the ultimate feedback, how much are you really helping us? That TB100 has the potential to be more correlated with your true contribution than your core with the target. So
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I was gonna basically say that because there's no way that you can trade the entire universe every single week. It would be inefficient, and the transaction fees would just destroy the portfolio. So that's what I was going to get into with top bottom, and then why it's important. It better reflects the portfolio you're actually trading. And then, yeah. So thanks for confirming my priors, Richard. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Anonymous. Hey, Anson bro, Wen Data API. Loading these massive data sets is not acceptable to my 32 gigs of RAM.
Soon.
Ah, no, I mean, I see what you did there.
We thought about trying to roll out a data API along, the one that we thought about, where it allows you to download, like, I don't know, specific eras or specific features. We thought about lumping that together with this release, but I think we just wanted to get this data out as soon as possible. I think that's the right decision.
Thank you.
Data API will have to come later, and it's going to have to be prioritized against actually just making improvements to the data.
Okay, fair enough.
The ability to download live only is really the big one. Maybe you can do that right now. I don't even know how to download this new data yet, but if we could just if we got set models, then all we need is that one era per week. So if we could do that, that would be a huge bandwidth saver for you as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that we did end up doing is allowing you guys to download each file individually. And I think making that in 4K, I think that's like 80% of the gains.
So can you download the live data now individually?
The tournament data.
That's huge still, right? So
which includes live and test.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Live only.
Live only seems easy. Yeah, we should do that, I think.
Yeah, if a model is saved and stored, then right, the validation and test would be the same week to week, but that would only be detectable if you submitted the test.
Which is exactly what I've been doing for the last 2 years. I just take the live data off the top, and then I predict that and add it to last week's, and that's all I do every week.
Yeah. Platemort wants to know if today's office hours is today or tomorrow. It's today. We're live.
Sorry, I had a typo in the date.
It's yeah, Anson owns it. That was his bad, but we are live. Hi. If you're watching this after the fact, this happened already. We are not quantum folks. We are live. We live in the current metaverse. So QE has another question. I am already reading on the forum that some people are struggling with their hardware and drivers. Could the team put something on the forum on how to set up hardware and drivers? I guess it would help if we knew a little more about your problem, but I would point you to Rocket Chat first, and then we may be able to parse out how it could help
Might
others.
be able to make a hardware tech group on Rocket Chat to keep that sort of how
Yeah.
to make your NIBI drivers work properly and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did do a walkthrough on setting up xgboost with clean install in Windows. I think that is in the forum, but now it's probably outdated, and that was about a year ago. But it at least gives you a framework to start from. I'll have to bump it up and see where it is. But that's a good question, QE. Anonymous, will compute be changed to have more RAM? Even with the old data, I was not able to use compute because of that using Google. I can't talk using Google Cloud now. Well, you can set your compute up to 30 gigabyte of RAM. I'm not aware of being able to move past that in the current implementation of compute. It's going to come down to being as efficient as possible with your script so that you can manage the RAM. I'm sure over the next several weeks, people are going to post ways of reducing the workflow. But Noah, maybe do you have a shortcut or a better way to answer that?
Not really. I mean, like using the size option in Numerai CLI is probably the best bet. I will probably bump the default size up 1 peg just so that like people don't have to use it if not necessary. But yeah, along with that, I might also add a couple options for even higher RAM instances.
Okay, great. I'm hopeful that I can be efficient in my code and not have to move past 4 CPU, 30 gig compute, because yeah, that's been working pretty well for me. So stay tuned. Let's see if we can all figure it out. Anonymous.csv in S3 ?
Yes.
Is that like Slido golf? Like, have we just played Slido golf with this question? I think we did, because I think that's the shortest question I've ever seen in Slido. So, and the answer was also Slido golf. So good job, Anson. I'm going to just let it go right there, because why mess up a good game of golf? Anonymous, will integration test use the new example model in the next round?
No, we're going to let integration test keep running the old version, yeah, as it is.
Have you created a model that will be the new example predictions?
Yes. Yeah, we're working on like kind of a new, we want to do sort of a bunch of stuff with this and have a bunch of, 5 or 6 different Numerai like open source models that are running. So people don't have to like submit them themselves every week. They can just watch these models and track them that way. But maybe, like a neutral model, maybe like the one from the advanced example script. So a few different ones of these. So that'll be hopefully in the next, month or two. We're working on that. Yeah.
So there is not a current model that will submit the example prediction file as it's contained in the download folder.
Is there one, Noah? I'm not aware.
Can I just jump in? I asked this question twice already in Rocket Chat. C-integration, is that the one? It was awoke in the middle of August. Nobody answered that question, so
Who owns that model?
I just answer anyway.
Own it.
That's mine. It is not the new stuff, but I could change it to be that.
Okay.
The integration test as it stands right now will just continue submitting the example predictions that are included in the dataset. So and those, I'm pretty sure we've tried to make those as close to the example model as possible. I don't know, MikeP, maybe you can confirm. I don't think they're the exact same ones.
So based on the ambiguity of your answers, I'm going to say somebody please make a model and upload the example prediction file in, whether it's team or somebody else do it, and just tell us what it is so we can track it. Much obliged. Thank you. QE.
I think it should be called example predictions as well, if we can do that.
Yeah, some kind of new name. QE, I remember something about 3,100 features, but it looks like it's only 1,000 now. What happened with that?
Yeah, 3,100. It's by the end of the year goal, still coming.
Soon. I speculated, and it was kind of confirmed a week or two ago that it's possible that some of those expanded features weren't very good, and so they did us a favor and didn't give them to us. That would be nice. Data vendor problems, because perhaps a vendor doesn't agree with this obfuscation process and simply won't give the licensing necessary for them to share it with us. And I won't say who, somebody quasi confirmed that I was right. So can I get even stronger confirmation of that?
I will
see a couple head
say,
nods. I see a couple head nods.
I mean, I'll say, like, really, this was about just trying to get the format out and just like kind of getting something launched and getting people going with something that is way better than what we're currently putting out. It's not like we don't want to add a lot more features. I mean, that is what I'm going to be working on, is adding even more features. But yeah, I thought it was good to go ahead and put out this a little bit smaller version, and make the example script so that you can absorb new features a lot easier without like breaking pipelines. So we kind of just want to get the format in place first, but more features coming for sure.
Okay. Another question on the test labels. Wasn't there discussion about also releasing the test labels? That's still in the cards. The answer was yes. That's a eventual thing. We don't have a timeline on it. I would like to see true contribution first, since I'm the host. I get to jump in and stand on my soapbox. So I'd like true contribution to be the highest priority. And yeah, that's what I have for you. So there, we're going to work on it eventually. OFS, can you share any performance statistics from our current models scored on a 60-day window?
I don't think so. I don't think we have anything on that.
Right, because remember, we're judging a 20-day target. We are just given additional targets, but that's not what we're paid on. So yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to see that since the target is different, but I don't know, maybe some intrepid modeler will figure out a way to do it. But based on what we've heard so far, I don't think that's going to be possible. Anonymous.
You could compute that yourself, like in cross-validation. Now that you have 60-day target, you have a 60-day version of NOMI. You could train a 20-day version of NOMI and see how well you predict on the 60-day version of NOMI.
But you wouldn't be able to do it on one of your current models.
No, not on one of your current models.
Okay, so that was the question. So you can't do it on a current model, but your new one you would be able to. Anonymous, is there a recommended machine for the new data set? Quantum computing is highly recommended for this one. If you have several $1 billion, perhaps you can build your own quantum computer with enough inputs that will help you solve. But if you're not a billionaire, in fact, we are able to do most of this on 32 gig machine with 4 cores, as is recommended in the example prediction or example notebook GitHub. But perhaps it takes a little work for you. In which case, do check the forum, Rocket Chat, and various forum posts, because there are ways to reduce the size of the data set, make it more manageable. So stay tuned on that. Suraj, will all of the new features be used in signals to neutralize our predictions against? That's a fantastic question.
That is a good question, but no, the signals neutralization is not changing with these new features.
Sorry, I was typing. I can't multitask. I'm terrible at it. So, Anonymous, the new targets confuse me a little. Is there anything Numerai could tell us about them? It's a good lead into the analysis and tips notebook.
Sure,
actually.
yeah. They're constructed using different, different types of regularization, obviously different time periods as mentioned. Some of them are constructed to have different feature exposures than other targets. For example, and so yeah, they're all kind of, we're trying to find better targets, but it always turned out that ensembling multiple targets, models trained on multiple targets, was better than any single target, and so we wanted you guys to have that ability as well. And yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if different types of models work better on different types of targets. There's just there's a lot of flexibility in how we can construct targets, and yeah, we explored that space quite a bit, and
cool.
We gave you what we thought was the best ones.
Well, I think that's a good lead in. There's just a second part of that. There is a clear target, so why introduce other targets? But just to your point, it just gives flexibility. So
right, yeah, and I mean, you find that if you train on some of the targets, your model might actually predict target better than the model trained on target. Just because some of the regularization built into the target makes your model learn things closer to what it should in some sense.
Cool. So, Oliver, will you please walk us through the analysis and tips notebook? I thought since it takes a little time to run locally, perhaps you can just use the GitHub version since that's all pre-populated.
I have it open on my computer that is pre-populated.
Sure. However you like, sir, as long as we don't have to sit there and watch your computer think.